Let's start with one very simple acknowledgement right up front, and that is narcissists are pretty impressed with themselves. In fact, so much so that they feel like they get to write the rule book. They get to decide how life is supposed to play out. Now, here's one of the crazy, maddening things about that, though, and that is when they remind you about how everything is supposed to go, they don't necessarily read that rule book as it applies to themselves. So in other words, they'll establish standards for you that they themselves don't live up to. That's the double standard that we're looking at. And I want to see if we can kind of look into this and figure out what we're going to do when that is a very common kind of thing. I mean, a real simple thing is, let's suppose you have one member of a family who is extremely loose and free with the way they spend money on themselves, but then that same person can micromanage everybody else. It's like, I get to do it, but I've got a whole different standard for you. Or it may be that that whenever there's some sort of event that goes on, well, we'll do things my way, but then and I want you to compromise and come over here towards me. But then when it comes time for them to compromise and go along with some of your plans or preferences, it's like, no, we don't do that. Double standard. So I've listed out 10 of the most common double standards that I see, and I'm going to go through these, and I want you to see how common these might be in your relationships, and we're going to figure out how we might want to respond to something like that. For example, double standard number one, and this is absolutely no shock to anybody, and that is the narcissist can say, my opinions are of extreme importance. Your opinions don't matter. So in other words, you can't have opinions. I, of course, can have opinions, and in fact, I'm sure everybody wants to know mine, and so there's that inequity that's just a part of the relationship. Or a second double standard, and that is, I get to criticize you whenever I want. The double standard is, you'd better not criticize me at all. And so this speaks to their attitude of superiority and just this sense that says, I'm so much better than you, so if I find fault in you, then you need to hear it. And of course, in their arrogance, it's like, I don't have any particular discernible faults, and even if I do, and if you try to point it out, you're probably wrong about it anyway, so you'd better not say a word that's critical about me. That's crazy making, isn't it? Or double standard number 3, and that is, you have to stay accountable to me. I don't have to stay accountable to you. And this can play out in so many different ways, whether it's in time management or how you manage your connections with each other. For example, if the narcissist sends a text message to you, then the rule is you're supposed to get back in a prompt sort of way. Now, if you send a text message to them and they don't feel like responding, they don't have to. I don't need to be accountable to you. Or they want to know where you're going to be and who you're going to be with and what kind of activities you've got. But then in reverse, it's like, I'm not telling you what I have going on with my day. I don't need to. And so there's that almost a parent-child kind of a thing, although I'd hate to even have to do that with a child. By the way, one of the things that's very common with narcissists is they like to keep secrets, and this is part of it, the lack of accountability. Or a fourth double standard that's quite common, and that is, I can yell and curse at you. You'd better not yell and curse right back at me. Now, this speaks to their levels of anger and how they manage anger. And so if they want to have this real strong, aggressive form of anger, and they're going to put you in your place, well, they feel like it's justified to do that. And if they have to belittle you, then that's just part of their gig. Now, if you get angry towards them, you'd better not come at me with that aggression, because you haven't earned the right to do that, so to speak. I have the right, but you don't. And it's the illogic of that is just so glaringly obvious, and yet to them it just makes perfect sense. Or a fifth double standard, and that is, it's desirable to invest time in my people. It's not desirable to invest time in your people. Now, this can be their own friends or their families, members or business associates. It's like, yeah, we need to spend a lot of time with them because I have a lot of things that I'm trying to accomplish there. But if you say, well, I have some folks that I'm interested in, the narcissist can come and say, as far as I'm concerned, they don't exist, at least not in my world. We're not going to invest with them. And so it's a one-way street in that way. Or a sixth a double standard they might have, and that is you're supposed to make sure you understand me thoroughly. I don't have to try to show understanding toward you. And so much of their insistent nature is basically their way of saying, I'm going to make sure that you know through and through who I am and what I think and what my needs are. And then when you want to say, well, I want you to know me, it's like, I don't need to know you. You're of little importance. That's part of the double standard. Or a seventh double standard they might have, and that is, I can label you and make any kind of comment about your character in any way that I feel is necessary. You had better not label me. Now, this goes to their spirit of judgment. They can be highly judgmental, and as far as they're concerned, yeah, they get to be the judge. But when you say, well, I've got a few judgments toward you, it's like, well, then I don't want to hear it because it's all going to be wrong anyway. Or number 8, when I defend myself, it makes sense. When you defend yourself, it means you're whiny and thin-skinned. Now, how many times have you engaged with a narcissist and they can be ridiculously defensive? They cannot receive any input at all. And by the way, they have what we call an alternate view of reality. And so if you try to call them out on it, it's like, no. Let me explain to you. They justify and rationalize and all of that. But if they think you're justifying or rationalizing, it's like, oh, there's something terribly wrong with you. And they don't see the inconsistency in the standards that they have. Or double standard number 9, and that is, I can say whatever I want to about you to family and friends. You'd better not say anything at all of a negative nature about me to family and friends. And so many times these folks will go behind your back and speak ill about you towards other people, and you find out about it later. It's like, what are you doing that for? And then if they find out that you might have said something that may not have been flattering about them to some of the same people, it's like, it's a war. I can do that. You better not do that. And again, that keeps them in charge of the PR campaign that's so important to them, because image is very important, and they have to craft the right kind of image and make other people believe what they want them to believe. Or number 10, and that is, I don't need counseling. You need counseling because you're so messed up. And so the double standard there is we don't look at my issues because I don't have issues. And so if anyone around here has issues, it's got to be you, because it can't possibly be me. So I'm wanting you to think, how many times have you been engaging with a narcissist, whether it's inside a marriage or family or a roommate situation or friendship or work, where it's like, this is just not right. You keep having all these requirements and duties that you put on me. And then if I try to speak back to you with the same kind of principles, you don't go along with it. And so you try to argue your case. It doesn't work. They don't want to hear from you. And basically it comes down to, they have 2 basic rules in life. Rule number 1, I'm right. Rule number 2, always remember rule number 1. That's how narcissists think. And so there are a couple of realizations that I want you to come to terms with, and then we'll see what we might do in terms of how this is going to impact you in the long run. The first realization is you're going to have very low levels of cooperation when you're dealing with a narcissist. In order to have healthy relationship engagement, there needs to be a certain level of empathy, and there needs to be a certain level of conscientiousness. They're not terribly conscientious, and they certainly don't have any empathy because it's all about them. And then in addition to that, there needs to be a certain open-mindedness regarding what's appropriate and not appropriate, because we each bring a certain set of values that we need to talk about. Narcissists don't want input. They have what I refer to as an alternate view of reality. And so for you to try to talk your reality to them, it's just, you might as well be talking in a foreign language. They have a high level of entitlement, which is all a part of this double standard kind of a thing. So just recognize that the norms that you would put with healthy relationships are simply not going to apply. And so that being the case, don't let the narcissist do your thinking for you. Sure enough, they're going to give you these double standards, and they're going to remind you of all the things that you have to do. But you know what? That's one person's opinion. The real opinion that matters in your life is your own. What do you think? So if the narcissist says, I can do this, but you can't, rather than arguing with them about the merits of it, just begin to consult yourself. What makes sense to me? And you live your life based on that. And by the way, that takes us to a place that's called boundaries, where you have a definition of who you are, and you stay inside that regardless of what the narcissist tries to do to pull you out of it. Now, I want to make you aware of an old Jewish proverb that kind of states things very simple, and that is, fools despise wisdom and instruction. And when you're dealing with a narcissist, you're dealing with somebody that doesn't want your wisdom. They don't want your instruction. They want to do all the giving, and they won't even listen to what they're trying to say to you. And so it's crazy when you begin thinking they have all of these opinions that are so important for you to live according to, but they won't even listen to their own input. So let's understand that a good life is anchored in an open mind. It's anchored in an attitude of blendedness and coordination and cooperation. And that's just something that's completely missed on a narcissist. And so when you try to get the narcissist to see some of the inconsistency of their thinking, let's understand you're dealing with pure foolishness. Now, there is somebody that I know who's not foolish at all. That's my buddy Gus right here. There you are, Gus. Gus doesn't have double standards. Gus's standard is, let's just all be nice with each other. So why don't we do that? Now, I would invite you to go beneath the video here, and if you're new to our Surviving Narcissism Network, click the subscribe button. We'll make sure that you know when more videos are coming along. I have some links beneath the video that take you to some of my books and some online workshops that you might be interested in. Just know that I consider it a privilege to be involved with you as you're trying to sift all this out. I take my role seriously, and I hope that this gives you some good food for thought. And that having been said, I will see you next time.